I still don't know when this thing starts. Has it started? Hi! How's it going? Welcome to the Android Central Podcast. It is... I can't start like that.
Well, you already did.
I did.
Roll with
Hey there,
it.
everybody! Hey there, everybody! Was it fourth time? What was Mickey's thing? 4. Hey there, everybody! Welcome to the Android Central Podcast. It is episode number 166 for Friday, January 3rd, 2014. And the only reason I got that year right, guys, is because I'm not reading it off anything. So I would have screwed that up otherwise. Welcome to the show. It's going to be kind of a weird one. First one of the year, last one before we go to CES, and there's been basically no news for 2 weeks, which is why we kind of took off. So we only got 3 of us here. We got Jerry Hildenbrand in West Virginia.
Howdy, howdy.
Andrew Martinick in Seattle.
Oh, my mic was muted because I was trying to not cough in everybody's ears. But
No.
Hi, how's it going?
Okay. I'm Phil, by the way. Whatever. How you feeling, Andrew? I know you were sick.
I've been sick for, I've just kind of had a lingering cold for over a week, and so hopefully I'm getting that out of the way before CES, so I won't bring anything with me, and I'll survive, make it through.
Cool. You see my new toy? I know I showed you guys earlier. I got proper lights on me now.
That's microwave parts that they
You know
turned
what's
into
cool?
a light.
It's got like it has the world's jankiest remote control. Like, this
Oh
is
man,
so
that's
cheap.
God.
state of the art there.
It's worth buying just to be able to have that.
I should totally like pretend it's a phone. Or not.
Is it a phone? It could be.
Maybe it is. It's like so light and just
Old
horrible.
phone parts.
I'm probably
Yeah, get
opening up garage doors outside the office here or something. Oh man. So what's been going on? Everybody have a good Christmas? Good New Year's holiday?
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you?
Mine was okay. Jerry sent like this giant thing of presents to my kids, and my kids are like, "Mom, Dad, all the crap you got us sucks. We want Jerry." Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Hi, I love your kids. More than I love you.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot going on. If there's anything you guys want to talk about, cool. If you're watching live, hop in the Q&A, throw some questions. Figured we'd just answer a whole bunch of them today while we're sitting around. What do you think?
Yeah.
Sounds like a good plan.
I'm trying to
Cool.
think of what else kind of happened.
Hey, we posted our Pebble thing finally and launched smartwatchfans.com. That's kind of big news.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You
That's
guys
going to be
sound
interesting.
excited. I like it. I'm excited about it. I'm excited that everybody else is excited about it. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah,
Josh wants to know, $5 to put my picture on the wall behind you, Phil.
Do
I
it.
might take-
Oh my, do it.
I might take that. I told Kevin, like $500 and I'll put BBM up there. I don't care. I'm easy.
Does it have to be hand drawn in Sharpie on a piece of 8.5 by 11?
I want to do like, who was it, Woody Page? I think he did it on Pardon the Interruption. He's got a whiteboard behind him and has something different every time, so maybe I'll do that. We'll see. It's the holidays have screwed me up, so like I haven't totally gotten this place fixed up the way I want to. But no, I mean, smartwatch fans, look, I'm kind of getting tired of this whole wearable smartwatch thing a little bit just because it's pre-CES and every other story right now is wearables are going to be big this year because that's what everybody says, even though we don't know that. I mean,
Right.
I think we're going to see some companies dabble in it for sure. But I mean, what do you guys think of when somebody says wearables are going to be big? Does that just mean smartwatches to you? Does that mean everything? Does it mean we're going to see more pie in the sky kind of things, or what?
When I think of wearables, I think even down as low as like the Motorola Skip. Something you can interact with your electronics with that make it do things. It doesn't necessarily have to be a computer on your wrist. And on some level, I think, yeah, they're going to get big. I don't know what direction it's going to take, so it's going to be fun to watch it as it happens.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's all wearables has kind of been shoehorned into the, it's either a pair of glasses or it's a watch. And, those are just, familiar form factors that are having electronics stuffed in them. And they can certainly go farther than that. We've seen like, NFC rings and, little cameras for this, that, and the other things. So, when somebody says wearables, they're probably meaning watches and glasses right now, but it can obviously go a lot farther than that.
And I think we got to be careful. There was that one ring to rule them all that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that got a lot of pub a couple weeks ago. Somebody finally picked up on the Kickstarter for it, and it's like, no, I'm so wary of Kickstarter right now, 'cause especially this one you saw, like the ring is like half my finger.
Yeah.
And not actually in production. Like, they don't have prototypes. All the renders look different, and it's just because somebody has a Kickstarter of a wearable doesn't mean it's the next big thing.
And a year before, we saw basically the same thing in a ring from another company.
Right.
And your wisdom said, well, let's hold off on running too far with that until we actually see something, and it never appeared.
And look, we've blown it, right? We weren't in the initial round of Pebble. It was months before we finally got a Pebble. And we talked about this on the first Smartwatch Fans podcast. It's tough to tell, and Eric at Pebble was pretty honest about it. He was like, "Look, it took longer than we thought, and we were pretty upfront that we didn't know how long it was going to be, and that's why we didn't give dates, and so it took a while. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a crapshoot, especially in the wearable space, because these aren't smartphones, so they're going to be cheaper to make, relatively speaking, and you're going to see a lot more of them out there, right?
Yep.
You want to do another question?
Load them up.
Joseph says, do we foresee a higher-end Pebble launching with more sophistication and better features? Like, can you take a call? So Pebble is announcing something. I think it's on the next Wednesday, whatever day that is, the 8th, I think. Tuesday, I forget which day. Anyway, they're announcing something next week, and they say it's something special, and that's all we know.
I want to say it's on Monday.
Yeah, I think Monday's right. It's one of those days of the week that I haven't mentioned yet.
Oh, go ahead, Phil. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, look, they've already announced their App Store, and I could see them maybe just rolling that out and that being there's something special. But at the same time, the hardware's been around for a while, more or less. It just took a long time to get into people's hands.
And I mean, I think we can pretty easily say that they're going to iterate eventually. Whether or not they're going to have two different levels of hardware. This is the baseline and this is the super advanced model. I'm not sure about that, but obviously they're they have to have some kind of desire to come out with a Gen 2 that's going to blow everybody's socks off.
Well, I know, Phil, you and I got the Pebble at about the same time, and I know you wear it every day, and I do too. Do you really want the Pebble to be able to make, take, and receive phone calls?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think people that are using it and like it don't want extra features crammed into it.
No, having reviewed the Galaxy Gear, I don't think that I want to take and make phone calls on my wrist.
Yeah, I like the idea. The implementation just wasn't there for Samsung. And I'd forgotten way back when we were looking at the Gear, I'd forgotten that Samsung likes to put Bluetooth microphones in a lot of things. Or I had that it was like an extra thick stylus for the Galaxy Note. It was a big pin, and it had Bluetooth in it, and you could make it essentially holding this pin up to your ear and making a call, and it was horrible. I still have a SoundCloud clip somewhere of how bad it sounded.
I want that in a shoe.
I know, right?
Old show.
The Gear was absolutely better than that, but it can be tough to do, and I'm just not convinced it has to be the way to go. The more I've used these, and I'm finally wrapping up the Qualcomm Talk piece that I need to write. And I think what I've decided is a big difference between something like Pebble and the Qualcomm Talk is that Pebble doesn't try to do too much. It's not trying to put too much on the screen. It's not trying to give me colors that are decent, but not really. It's got good battery life. It's not trying to go overboard on battery life. Obviously, you can never have too much. No camera, and I'm fine with that. It's very measured in what it's trying to do, and I think that's important in a piece like that, both from a hardware standpoint and from a software standpoint. Galaxy Gear to me feels like I'm trying to use a phone, and I don't want that much of anything just right here. I want to just look at it and I'm done. I really got a sense of that when you look at a notification. Qualcomm's trying to tell me, here's how many notifications you have. I don't care how many notifications I have or how many emails. I want to see the email, go through the email. It's telling me what time it is and what time it came in. that's fine, and then I get who it's from and what it is, and that's it. So they really pare it down. I think that's important.
I think there's probably going to end up being two levels since we're talking about smartwatches. There's going to be a smartwatch that works like the Pebble does today, and it does a few basic things, and it does them very well. And then there's going to be one that goes a step further than the Gear, maybe even takes its own SIM card, and does everything for people that want to do everything on their wrist. And that would cover, pretty much all the bases, I think.
But the battery, it's all the number one thing I think when it comes to any kind of wearable in the next 2, 3, 5 years is battery. Whether it's Google Glass, whether it's smartwatches, and I mean that is obviously the limiting factor at this point. And it's a big one. It's a really big one. I don't know that anybody can figure that out yet. Let's see. Sten says, do you think that Google will release or at least announce an Android watch in 2014 similar to the Samsung Galaxy Gear? I don't know that they have to.
No.
I'm thinking about that. And I mean, I know we're all expecting them to, but do you guys think Google has to announce a watch?
I mean, I remember talking about this before this last Google I/O, and I was kind of just thinking that, it's a huge company, and, it's kind of crazy to think that they could throw all of their, eggs in one basket with just one thing and not be able to focus on multiple. But the way that they're focusing on other devices, including glass, but, mostly phones and tablets and things like that in the consumer electronic, broad sense, it's like a watch would just be too much. What do they need to do with a watch other than to just say, me too, me too?
Yeah, I'm sure somebody at Google is thinking about it. And it wouldn't surprise me if there was an actual piece of hardware built, or more than one piece, laying around and people looking at it. But I think that's more something that their hardware partners need to build. And Google just helps write the software to make it great.
Right. But I mean, we have to think about the software side of making Android, small, 1.5-inch square screen friendly.
Right. And when you get every OEM making smartwatches, which very well could happen, and they're all disjointed and weird, then maybe Google will step in with a air quote Nexus smartwatch, like they did with the Nexus 1. When you think back when the Nexus 1 came out, it had to come.
Yeah.
It had to, or Android would have never survived the different branches everybody was going with it. So I mean that's a possibility, but I don't see the incentive for Google to jump up next March, April, May, whenever they have I/O next year, and say, hey, look at our smartwatch, because there's just no reason they need to do it yet.
I love the idea of Google Glass style cards in some sort of small interface like that. Mm-hmm. I don't want to wear Google Glass while I'm driving that much, right? I want to talk about a couple other pieces this week on Google Glass in a second, but I really love the idea of that small, succinct navigation, just someplace I can glance down. I think that would be great.
Yeah, they've done wonders with that, the glass interface, and they've gone. The biggest part about it that I like is that they're really strict guidelines. The developers are given all of the assets to make everything look nice with that interface. Obviously, with the watch, you have a little more play because you're not dealing with a transparent screen, but just having that structure of the transparent cards, the left, right, up, down, different navigation hierarchies. Just it could translate really well to a watch from glass.
Well, yeah, the navigation especially, if you've used Google Glass, you understand how the taps and swipes work. That would translate perfectly to a smartwatch touchscreen.
If you think about the way that the Galaxy Gear is laid out, it's laid out very similarly, actually, with the left, right, and then you go deeper in the menus by swiping up. So
yeah.
Jason wants to know, how much do you think wearables need to cost to really sell? I think they need to be much less than a person's phone, probably less than $300. I think it depends. I think the Galaxy Gear itself, as a piece of hardware, is really nice. It's probably still my favorite looking smartwatch, even if it's not as comfortable as the other two that I've worn for any length of time. But it looks great. It kind of reminds me of the Nexus Q. where somebody would say, "Oh, it costs too much. It should not be that expensive." And I said, "No, no, no. That looks like a $300 product, even if it doesn't act like it." You know what I mean?
Yes, the gear is it, and from a watch standpoint, it's well built too. It's nice stainless, and it's well integrated with a great band. They did a good job on the aesthetics.
Yeah. So let's talk Google Glass for a second. Did either of you read Matt Honon's piece in Wired about he says, "Look, I'm not wearing it. It's not going to be big.
Yeah.
It's doomed in 2014." I don't necessarily disagree with him. I kind of think, and Robert Scoble wrote a big, kind of counterpoint.
Well, of course.
Well, no, and I think they're both right, and that was kind of the premise. I was telling somebody who I'm trying to get to write one of those Through Glass things for us. I think that's kind of the point. There's not one answer to this yet. There's not it's doomed. There's not it's going to sell 1 million. It just is, and Google is giving people the opportunity to buy it and to try it and explore. I still think Explorer is the perfect name for what's going on with Glass and that whole thing, because we're exploring the technology, we're exploring the moral and social implications of it, and that to me is what's exciting. I don't care if it fails. I don't care if it doesn't fail. I don't care if everybody's wearing one next year. Right now, I'm just really curious to see what everybody does with it and experiences with it.
I think that Scoble had kind of the right idea. A little bit misleading in the beginning and say that it's completely doomed.
Yeah.
But like you said, he came to a counterpoint where, head-to-head with something a little more socially acceptable, like a watch or some other kind of wearable device, Glass just isn't going to compete, especially with the pricing and just how it looks right now. But that doesn't mean that the ideas that are coming through in the Explorer program aren't worthwhile, and it's not worth exploring those possibilities. And I think that it doesn't have to be like the next product that defines the next 30 years of computing, and to have purpose in the space of smart glasses or a heads-up display.
Well, I'll tell you, as from a software developer point of view, Google Glass is already a success. We have an entirely new user interface and way to interact that could be translated. We said a smartwatch. Joseph in the comments says a heads-up display on your car window. There are many, many applications for this. Picture it on your car window, because I've thought of this too, with a small touchpad on your steering wheel.
Yeah.
That, and the software is written. The software is good to go for that, and that's a success story.
We were talking about it today. It's kind of weird seeing all these car dealers, and car manufacturers. We're making Google Glass for our cars. I can't tell if they're being serious or if they're just trying to get their names out there in the tech press with these things. I mean, because the software is relatively simple to do, right?
Yeah.
But not that many people in the scheme of things are going to have these cars and have Google Glass and want to use them in the car.
And considering how bad the interfaces are on many cars nowadays, I don't have a ton of faith in how well they can integrate those things. But they could prove me wrong. What
does that say about UIs and infotainment in cars when Google Glass is potentially better than it is?
The first thing that hit me when I saw those couple press releases, who is it? Mercedes, Hyundai, wearing your Google Glass, and then all of a sudden you get a card that says save $12.95 on your next oil change, only at so and so's Honda of New York. That's what it's going to be. I don't think they're going to try to tap into their existing navigation systems or onboard computers as much as they want to show you information through a card display.
My wife got a letter in the mail this week from a car manufacturer that rhymes with Nissan, and it said, "Hey, you need to pay us $150 for a new map on your car, and we'll send you an SD card, you download it or whatever." And it's like, are you kidding me?
And they still make a huge amount of money just on the navigation options that are tied into you have to buy the navigation along with chrome valve stems for your tires or something, and it costs $2,000, and you still have to buy an SD card 2 years later to update North American maps.
It's nuts.
It's a huge revenue stream.
Let's see. I want to switch gears. Harv asks, I have a Jelly Bean Moto G in the UK. Why should I update to KitKat when it's available? Those who have updated say there's little or no difference. Thanks. Well,
I guess there's nothing saying that you couldn't hold off, but if there's little to no difference and you could have the potential compatibility of the new KitKat features, then why not?
If your favorite application decides it wants to use immersive mode, there's a reason.
mm-hmm.
And it's free. There's a second reason.
I actually just noticed immersive mode is one of those things where once you go back to a device that doesn't have it after using, I've been using Press with immersive mode for reading, and it's just something that's really nice until you notice that you don't have it.
I don't think every app needs immersive mode. I don't know. What do you guys think? I was thinking about that with our app.
No, I want navigation controls on a lot of apps. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the middle ground that like Google Plus and Chrome do, where they'll hide the bar when you scroll down and then reveal it when you scroll up. But it's kind of hard, when you're reading something in the browser. Sometimes you're reading an article and you want the whole screen, and other times, you want to have those navigation buttons because you're quickly moving back and forth between pages. I'm not sure that it's. I mean, blanket immersive mode is obviously not the way to go.
And also security updates. And
Yes.
just general bug fixes. I'm kind of an update-aholic. I can't help myself. If it's something.
With Motorola devices, they've put apps in the Play Store for the camera and things like that. Some of them are only KitKat. You have to be on KitKat first, and then you start getting updates in the Play Store. So.
Yeah.
And they're not going to release those security patches for people running, Jelly Bean. That's just not how it's done. You're going to have be on the current update before you can install the next one. So, and again, if it's pretty much the same, I'll pose the question to you: why not update? It's free and it's the same. You're not losing anything.
Yeah. Here's a good one. Back to Google Glass for a second. Should I wait for the Glass release, assumed to be this year, the commercial release, whatever, or get the Explorer Edition for $1,500? I'm not convinced we're gonna see like a commercial. Here's what I was thinking after all that, and John Gruber had a big thing on it, and that is Glass will fail commercially. Is Glass in its current iteration? Is it a commercial product, or is it? And as soon as I say that, I want to say, well, yeah, it's a commercial product because I can buy it. Is it meant to be a commercially viable product? Maybe is what I'm getting at.
I think the $1,500 price tag answers that question, because when you buy one, your single purchase is covering the entire cost of having that device built.
Yeah.
You're not paying $300, and Google is making them in quantity to try to meet price points. They're $1,500. It's what it probably costs to build one, and that's what you're paying for.
Right. If you really, I'm talking to my kids now. If you really super want one, get one. But it's a lot of money for something that it just is early.
Well, the funny thing of what we saw with the invites being expanded out to people that have Google Play Music All Access or something, it's just kind of it's not as exclusive as it used to be, but that's carrying the same exclusive price, and they've iterated the hardware once very smallly, going to V2 with just a couple small differences, and it's like, do you think that is it because they're holding off because they have a huge version 3 hardware that's just going to look completely different, and that's going to be the consumer launch, or is it just going to slowly roll out, and then all of a sudden they drop their requirement and they keep the $1,500 price tag? It's hard to say what they're doing, because it's kind of been a weird rollout.
Or, I just thought of this. What if they say, all right, here's this new version of Google Glass, and for everybody who got in on the Explorer Edition, they take $200, $300, $500 off.
Maybe.
That's totally just out of my head, but
I'm a firm believer that if they go, they want to push the consumer market, there's going to be a much cheaper made, smaller version that's going to cost $300 or less. That's what it's going to take to get it into a lot of people's hands, period. You've already paid, you know, anywhere from 200 to 900 for the phone you're using. You know, by the time you pay AT&T, you're paying $900.
Yep.
But are you going to want to spend another $600 on a pair of Google Glass to wear, you know, to go along with it? If you didn't have to have the phone, maybe. But if you already have to have that phone, they're going to have to be cheap, mass-marketed, and relatively disposable.
Here's one for you two, since you are the masters of this. What are your thoughts on Chromebooks? The cheap $200 to $400 Chromebooks were sold out on Amazon during the holidays. Acer announced they will be making a Moonstone White version of their popular C720.
Oh, it looks so good.
And new Chromebooks have the speedy Celeron 2955U. What are your thoughts?
I love the things, and I think that's the next big thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that they're far beyond a niche product. They have a lot of uses, and we're going to see them hopefully expand out of this $200 to $300 cheap netbook level stuff, and kind of step up to the next level as well as keeping the lower price points. But I think as a second computer for somebody like us, it's fantastic. As a primary computer that somebody would maybe normally gravitate towards just having a tablet as their only computer, but wants a keyboard, and it's half the price. I think that there's a use there, and I think the sales on Amazon kind of reflect that. They're huge, and at Best Buys and directly from Google Play, they can't, and it's not that they're making 50 of these. Acer has no problem making plenty of laptops, and they're still selling out. So I think there's something to be said for that.
Everybody knows a person who a computer for them equals Facebook, Twitter, email, maybe a little bit of Netflix, a little bit of YouTube. That person is the prime target for a Chromebook. You spend $300 on a Chromebook, or you spend $300 on a cheap Windows laptop, and tell me which one gives you the better user experience.
Right.
It's for I would say a good 60 to 70% of the people online, a Chromebook is the answer. They just have to convince themselves that they don't need to be scroggled. I don't know how to say it. You don't. Most people don't need to worry about what they can do offline or can they use Microsoft Office, because they don't do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that you have to get past that first barrier, like you said, of why is this different, when you should just open it and try to do what you normally do. And for most people, you'll find that there's nothing different except for you don't have all the headaches of your old computer, and it's still only costs $250.
For what you can do on a Chromebook, if you take only the things you can do on a Chromebook, that cheap $300 computer does those things better than a $1,100 MacBook Air.
Mm-hmm.
It may not do everything, but what it does very well for the price point.
All right, so just back up. What is the best Chromebook I can buy right now that's not a Pixel? Because I understand that the Pixel's ridiculously expensive still.
I think the one Andrew has right now.
I think it's the Acer C720 is the best. Just simply because for me it encompasses kind of what Chromebooks are right now, because it's thin and light and small. There's the 14-inch Chromebook, the HP Chromebook 14, that has the most of the same internals and a larger and better screen. But to me, that kind of starts to get away from, it's like weighs 4.5 pounds and doesn't have fantastic battery life. So it kind of starts to get away from what it means to have, a super portable computer with, great battery life, like 9-10 hours, which is what the C720 offers, and it's only $250 or $300 with the touchscreen, or $200 if you bump down the RAM.
And go for the touchscreen. The web is mostly not touch enabled, but when you run across that one place that was designed with a touchscreen in mind, and you use it, it was worth the $50, because that's going to happen more too.
Yeah, and it kind of just depends if you're okay being forward-looking and spending the $50.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can spare it, it's the nice thing is you're not making a compromise really. It's effectively the same with more storage as the other one.
Cool. Here's a good one from Ricardo. My younger brother has a Galaxy S3. He's happy with it, but wants to get a new device. Would a Nexus 5 be a good choice for someone who isn't worried about specs, or is the Moto X enough to satisfy a regular user? Space isn't an issue for him.
Well, my first thing is if he's happy with the S3, just buy a new case. Polish the screen up. Go. You know, I have to change my phone, it seems like, every month, and I hate it. You know, I would like to use what I'm happy with all the time and never have to change. And if he's still happy with it, I know my opinion is not going to be very popular, and Phil's probably saying, "Shut up, Jerry, that doesn't help." But if he's still happy with the S3, which I was playing with the S3 again over the weekend, it's a hell of a little phone for when it came out. It was amazing. Use the S3. Roll with it. Be happy. Be retro.
My dad's still using an S3.
Like tens of millions of people still are.
Yep.
Yep. Oh man, I wish I'd had this earlier so we could have researched it. Matthew says, any tech resolutions for the new year you think readers should stick to? That actually, I think that goes back to what Jerry just said. And remember we did our resolutions 2 years ago. You know, and I know the grass is always greener, and we have all these toys, and we brag and show them off and whatever. But if you got a good phone, love the phone you're with.
I was kind of leaning more towards, well, I guess things you could do on your own phone. Kind of maybe think about the security on your phone. I know that people don't like to think about that, but think about using Google two-step authentication. You can use it for Dropbox, Gmail, Outlook. I think Outlook.com can use it for, you know, all kinds of other accounts. And, you know, maybe put a PIN or passcode on your phone. It's enable Android Device Manager, things like that that are just sometime throughout the year, millions of people are going to lose their phones, and the least you can do is know that the person that picks it up doesn't have, you know, your contacts list and your emails.
I want to see Google basically do what Apple did and all but require you to have a PIN. In iOS, I forget if it was 7 or 7.1, when you're setting it up for the first time, it almost forces you to use a PIN, but it does so in a way that you don't feel forced. You're just like, hey, all right, now give your phone a PIN. It'll be more secure.
Right,
like,
it's just the
cool,
next step of the setup process.
Yeah.
Well, that's because of the thumb print thingy.
No, because I've got a 5.
Yeah, but
and it does the same thing.
But it's part of iOS 7 setup because it's
Sure.
a pin's required for the 5S.
Sure, that's true too. But it should just be required anyway, I think.
I think so. A 4-digit PIN is hard enough to guess to be safe, and even if you don't use an app that disables it at certain times, you know, through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or whatever, and you have to enter it every time, it takes all of 1 second when you get used to it. And when you lose your phone, not if, when you lose your phone, you'll have that peace of mind knowing that somebody like Jerry didn't pick it up and get in there and have all your stuff.
We have an important correction from Nick.
Uh-oh.
When I was referencing Woody Page and the messages on the wall, which way do I turn? That way. It's around the horn and not PTI.
Oh,
Very
that's
good.
right.
That's
right, yep.
Very correct. I regret the error.
Sports.
Oh, stop it. I saw another one I wanted to do here. Where was it? Curtis asks, are the Nest makers at CES? And if so, will they have anything new? That is a very good question. Let me look real quick. Will you guys discuss Nest? I
have not heard, because I mean they just came out with their fire alarm, smoke alarm deal. I don't know. I haven't heard anything either way, honestly.
I'm not ready for Nest yet because it's not ready for me. I will buy a Nest. Anything under $1,000, I will buy it instantly when you show me something that works. I'm going to use an aquarium reference here, like a reef controller. It's one unit. You can attach different things to it, and you have a centralized point to control everything. I want to be able to control my thermostat, my smoke alarm, my front door lock, my doorbell, maybe even shut off appliances, all from one central unit in my home. When you bring that to me, I'm buying it.
Right, and those are things that you could already do, but they're all separate systems and different
Right.
apps. You know, there's the Y things or We things or whatever that you can, you know, like I said, shut off lights and appliances, but it's not part of your Nest, which is not part of your door lock system, which is not part of your home automation, you know, hub or whatever. I'm not huge into Nest just because I rent, and so I'm not really interested in taking things apart and having to deal with putting them back together later. But I think it's interesting if they were to build out that ecosystem to where you make one big purchase and you get all of the things, not, you know, just a couple disjointed pieces.
I think I'm gonna get one. I decided the other night.
Well, I'm surprised you don't have one yet. I mean, you
Well,
kind of almost have to.
Because I was working at home all the time. So, I mean, I always had to have the heat or the air on. And I just really didn't have a reason. But now, I mean, I can already tell now that I've been out of the house all of 3 weeks that I need to do something. I either need to program the thermostat I bought last year or get a Nest, I think. And I think I'm going to finally get a Nest just because it's pretty freaking cool.
It'll save you some money, too.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's how I've sold it to my wife. I kind of like the idea, though, of not having everything connected. I'm just kind of a little Battlestar Galactica like that, you know? Just not everything needs to be tied into each other. And, I mean, would it be nice? I guess. I don't know. It's not that I don't trust it. I just don't like single point of failure, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I've also been, I tell you what else I've been looking at is AT&T, some of their home automation stuff.
See, that is amazing, but I would never. Because you're trusting AT&T to keep somebody out of your house.
Well, I mean, is that any different than trusting an alarm company or?
Well, if I was going to have electronic control over things in my home that included access, like to the windows and doors, I don't want cloud-based. I want Jerry controls it. That way, it's Jerry's fault if somebody gets in.
So we'll see. I got to think about that one some more. But I think a Nest I'm definitely going to do. And I asked on Google Plus and got a few good answers, a few bad ones. But yeah, I think I'm gonna do it when we get back from CES.
Well, you know, it's such a simple idea. I'm surprised it took so long for somebody to do it.
I know, right?
And at least they did it well. It looks nice, and you know, from what I understand, it works very well. So
I'm excited. It'll be fun.
I swear I'm not going to get one. I'm going to write that down somewhere. I'm just not going to get one.
Let's see. I'm going all the way down to the bottom. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. What about all the new HTC One Plus rumors?
Do we speculate on rumors?
Here's how I feel about smartphone rumors at this point in the game. I mean, you start seeing these specs coming out. I'm like, yes, they are smartphone specs, and they're all a little bit better than last year, and kind of what you would expect. Without having the knowledge of somebody like Brian Klug, and I can't tell you the difference between one chipset and another, and how it's 25% faster, blah blah blah. I don't know. I mean, and this almost goes back to the Moto X or Nexus 5 question. We're at that point where like all the high-end stuff and even a lot of the low-end stuff, look at the Moto G, is good enough. And it's really damn good, and the software is finally getting to the point where it can run on these, you know, lower end things and run well. That these spec rumors just don't do anything for me.
Right. And yes, 2014 is going to be the year of software, because the other day I opened the gallery on the Galaxy S4, and because I sync my online stuff to the gallery, it's a known bug. It took like 90 seconds before it would open. The Moto G opens it instantly, and the Moto G is nowhere near, you know, the software chops that the S4 has. So it all comes down to software. So 2014 is the year of software, and you know what? I think Samsung is going to lead the charge. I think the next version of TouchWiz is just going to knock us dead on our ass with how good it is.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I think you got it perfect.
Well, Samsung knows. Samsung knows they need to make some adjustment. They offer everything that everybody wants, which is fine and dandy, but now they need to get in there and tweak it so everything that they offer just works like a champ. And I think they'll do it.
Let's see. I want to go back to the watches for a second because this is something I've been trying to figure out in my head. So with what you've stated, something in between the Pebble and the Galaxy Gear, notification but not pictures or voice, but allows you to see who is calling. Yeah, I mean, all the watches show you who's calling, right? Not necessarily like live video of who's calling, and that's fine. What I've come down to is that you have this kind of a timeline of smartwatches. And you have the Pebble on one end. I think you have the Galaxy Gear on the far other end right now. The Talk is somewhere in the middle, even though the price is more than everything else. Yeah, see, I still haven't quite articulated that the way I want to. You see where I'm going? Like, there's this weird scale of things.
I think that maybe what you're trying to say, you could correct me, is that the philosophical idea of the Pebble kind of has it nailed. You can fix some of the issues with the build quality and the screen size or adding a touchscreen or whatever. That could be added in if you stick with the same philosophy of just having kind of a notification receptacle, rather than the Gear has all of the bells and whistles, but also has all of the huge size and the battery life issues of a large AMOLED screen. That can be tougher to pare down.
And it's difficult to do what the Gear does and do it well. This isn't a big rack server on your wrist. It's a tiny little ARM chip that you're pushing the daylights out of it to just try to get it to do what it's doing. So that's part of the equation is that maybe a hardware brainstorm breakthrough needs to happen before they can make smartwatches that do all this crazy stuff.
Josh says, you guys make a great point about pins on smartphones, but I don't want someone else deciding whether I must have a password or a pin.
I wasn't going to say it.
I was surprised Jerry didn't.
You mean like a workplace required pin?
Or Android or iOS forcing you to set one up.
Yeah.
I think Phil gave the point of nearly requiring it, right? Have it as part of the setup process, and then let people turn it off.
They suggest it in such a way that you're just like, oh yeah, I should do that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, you don't have to have it enabled. I mean, that's...
Right. And you walk around and look at people using iPhones with iOS 7, still half of them don't. I think the metric is half of people, or 60% of people, don't have any kind of lock screen protection.
The libertarian in me is like, yeah, you're absolutely right. The dad in me is yes, put a password on your phone, please. Just do it. Do it. Wear your seatbelt. Look both ways before you cross the street. Sometimes we're going to save people from themselves.
You see people not, they don't put passwords on their computers either, even their laptops that they, take
you're
to
giving me
public
goosebumps.
places.
You're just stop.
And it's just like, man, you really gotta just consider what that means.
I gotta duck out real sick.
Okay. I want to convince people to want to use a passcode or a PIN.
Right.
I don't want to tell you what to do. That's just not me at all. If you want to, set it up so your phone never shuts off and every email you get is flashed for the world to see, go for it. Be happy.
And I think that's what it comes down to is by not having it as part of the setup process and requiring you to go into settings, consciously be the person that's going to think about using security first, and then go into the settings, go into the security settings, and then pick a screen lock that helps them achieve that goal.
Yep.
It's so much better to just have it as the option during setup, along with the location consent, which is something that needs to be there. I don't see why this wouldn't be in the same ilk as that.
Well, just keep your phone safe, guys. Don't randomly, enable things that make it easier for you to hack, and then not put a passcode on it, because one day you're going to lose your phone, and if somebody like me finds it, except they're not like me and they want to be a real jerk, they're going to order 5 Nexus 5s with your Google Play account. Or they're going to do something equally evil and stupid, and it's just not going to be a good time. Please.
I mean, and not to mention, as you said, as you have Google Wallet signed in on your phone and all of these other things, and PayPal and eBay and Amazon all signed in on your phone.
Well, but at least apps like Wallet require a secondary PIN.
True, that's good.
Unless you're dumb like me and use the same PIN over and over, that's not good. What else?
More Q&A.
Yeah, I'm looking. Chris wants to know, are there any mid to high-end Android phones with a shutter button? I'm looking to buy a new phone, and it's something I would like.
Hey, the Xperia ZL has one, but the screen sucks.
And it's not mid to...
Oh, yeah, it is.
Well, okay, yeah.
It's well above mid-range. But
And the Z Ultra that looks just like that, except it's,
Does
like
it have a shutter
somebody
key?
put Miracle, has the same button in the same spot, and if it's supposed to work, the one I had doesn't.
Really?
Must be the Google software is all I can think.
The nice thing about this one is Sony at least made it it's a dual stage shutter key, so it's one to focus and two to capture. But the problem is that it's still a skinny little button. The button that they used for the power button would have been better because it's big and metal and circular. The big issue with these shutter keys is that they're not big enough to be functional like a normal shutter key, and you end up causing more camera shake by using the shutter key than just using the software button or a software button with a timer. So it's kind of just defeats the purpose anyway.
Now I feel like an idiot because I assumed that the big silver power button was the shutter button that everybody talks about on that Xperia Z and ZL.
No,
I didn't know there was another button.
That's just the power button, and then there's another
okay, that's just
shutter
silly
key up
because
here.
that silver button would be perfect. That's what I thought it was.
Right, it is perfect.
Alex says the Z1 has one as well, by the way.
And so I kind of like the idea of like the Lumia 1020 has that camera grip that adds like a full-size shutter button. That's kind of a cool idea because then you're getting a real shutter button. But you don't have to make your phone gigantically thick to have it.
If you could only install Android on that camera grip and do away with the Windows part of that.
Right.
No, maybe I'll send mine to you, Jerry, while I'm gone because I still have to get that SIM card tray out.
You want me to try taking it apart and getting it out?
Maybe.
I can do that.
Oh.
I can do it.
Can you put it back together?
Well, it depends on how much I have to use the plasma cutter.
No.
But yeah, send it. I'll monkey with it and see what I can do.
Let's see. Garnet wants to
ahead.
know. I'm moving on. I'm curious as to how the previously mentioned Android camera API will eventually play out. Could it already be enabled and dormant in 4.4.2, just waiting for an announcement? How realistic is it to expect Moto X-style camera app for the Nexus 4? Not quite sure.
So the
I think you mean
camera UI and the camera API are two different things.
Yeah.
But I think he means a standalone camera app in Google Play that's outside of the OS. I don't know. I'd like to see that happen. People get upset and say Google is taking away from open source and they're doing all this and that. No, I mean the open source stuff is still there, still works. I want to see them do things like make a better camera app and put it in Google Play for everybody to download.
Well, and more importantly, I want to be able to see Instagram be able to update and have be able to pull image data directly from the camera rather than just dealing with what the JPEG comes out of the camera and then going from there. It opens up a lot of possibilities. People like other camera apps for burst capture and HDR and panoramas and things, and they all have to do funky stuff because they don't have direct access to the hardware.
And speaking of that, to go back one step with the camera button, any phone that you have now, a lot of third-party apps will let you use the volume keys as a camera button.
Mm-hmm.
So check into that. I forget who asked that question. I'm sorry, but. Take that top one, Phil.
Yeah?
From
Way up the
Orlando.
top?
Yeah.
Any chance we get a real rival for Samsung in the Android space this year? Maybe Motorola, LG, Oppo, HTC, or someone else?
Because I want to hear what your answer to that might be.
My answer, a real rival for Samsung. My money is still on LG, and that's because LG has money.
LG has the ability, yep.
And the ability. And I like the hell out of what Motorola's doing right now, too. I really do. You started seeing some marketing from LG, especially in the latter half of the year, that they hadn't really done.
A lot of G2 ads.
A lot of G2 ads in a lot of prominent places.
Like Monday Night Football and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I heard a rumor that one of the big halftime commercials for the Super Bowl is going to be all about the LG something that's coming.
Huh.
If we see that, then my answer is maybe Samsung's going to have a rival. But that's what it takes. LG, I mean, let's face it, the LG builds phones that look, feel, and act just like Samsung phones. They're just as good and just as bad all at the same time. Mm-hmm. They just need to convince you to buy them.
Yeah.
And I think pointing out that they have the money to do it is important, just simply because HTC is just not going to have the money to buy a big ad spot at the halftime of the Super Bowl, and that's the kind of stuff that you need to compete with Samsung. And especially, we're not going to see it for you're going to have to chip away at this for a couple of years. No. I mean, Samsung could just stop advertising and just coast in number 2 spot for years.
We complain about a lot of the stuff Samsung does, but my God, they make great stuff and people love their products. That's the hardest part was convincing people to stop buying whatever phone you're buying now, BlackBerry, iPhone, whatever it was, and buy a Samsung Galaxy phone that runs Android. Once you buy one, you're either going to like it, you're going to hate it. If you like it, you've got a great phone that a lot of other people have. There's lots of apps for it. And you don't just take that away. That's never going to disappear.
And I think that one interesting thing that LG has going for it is it has, whereas Samsung has gone with the Galaxy branding and people say, I want the iPhone or I want the Galaxy, LG has dropped the Optimus thing and just stuck to its LG brand as being a strong part of its branding. And people know LG. People don't really think about Optimus at all. And, I think that could help them in, kind of building up that mind share in mobile.
Yep. I think I'm going to call it. I think.
What are you going to call it?
We're kind of short, but no, I'm going to call the podcast. I know we're kind of short, but I got to finish doing stuff before we go to Vegas, including going and picking up my camera, which is why I had to duck out. They were calling me. No, I mean, kind of final thoughts of what you guys expect to see, what you think is going to be the big thing. Please don't just say wearables. Wearables.
If I'm not saying wearables, it's other accessories.
Yeah.
There's a big niche to fill with, I can go to Target and buy a clock radio that I plug my iPhone into, and it works really, really well. Android has a couple. There was one on Kickstarter we featured, but that space is wide open. There are enough Galaxy S4s out there that somebody needs to be making a clock radio that you just place your Galaxy S4 right down in, and it just works. Cases with wireless charging, that little car dock dealie I did the other day, that thing was just freaking awesome. Every company should want a case that has wireless charging to slap on the back of their phone. Little things like that. I think there's going to be a big push for that. Major announcements, I don't know, because everybody's kept a tight lid on stuff this year.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Andrew?
Oh, man. I don't know. I think that just at a high level, I kind of like that discussion of who's going to come up and challenge Samsung. I kind of like the idea of LG clearly making that push, kind of seeing what's going to happen with HTC. Hopefully makes that push as well as much as it can. But I hesitate to just say wearables because I think that it's just such a weird, it's kind of hard to encompass all of those things when you're talking about Google Glass and the Motorola Skip in the same area. But companies have been trying to do that for a long, long time to come out with all these weird little accessories that nobody actually cares about. So maybe they can come up with something that's, appealing that people will say, oh, I want to buy, XYZ phone because it has this group of accessories. Some of them may be wearable, some of them maybe not, that are actually, appealing as an entire, ecosystem around the device.
And of course,
Cool.
tablets. Everybody and their brother is going to bring a tablet again.
Already so many announcements.
Whether or not we'll actually care about them is a different.
Yeah, cheap, low-end
Question.
stuff. Great.
With the Galaxy Tab 3 and the Nexus 7 as cheap as they are, I feel bad when these companies spend time and money to develop a tablet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what T-Mobile does on Wednesday. I know there's so much hype with T-Mobile right now, and some of it's justified, and some of it's just noise. But I am curious to see what they announce. And see what they
I
do
think
next.
John's going to come out and challenge Ralph and the rest to a duel right on stage.
That would be awesome. There was that CTIA a few years ago where they had the Big Four up on stage together. It was actually pretty good. It would be really interesting to see now that John Lesher is in there.
He's got a lot to say, and nobody else speaks out the same way that he does, which makes it the most hilarious part.
Yeah.
I want Dan Hesse to start to speak out like that. I want to know what he really thinks.
I want to know. Well, he's not allowed to say anything now that Masayoshi Son's involved,
But I have a feeling that he thinks just like me, and he wants to tell everybody exactly what he thinks, but he's not allowed.
All right. Now I'm sticking a fork in it, I think.
All right.
If you want to, you can email us at podcast@Android Central. We'll get back to them eventually. You can get us all on Google+. Just search our names. Be sure, starting right now, the moment you listen to this, the moment you watch this, go to androidcentral.com/CES live and check out our CES hub page, whatever you want to call it. It'll actually change a little bit starting next week, probably I'm not sure if they're going to do it Monday or Tuesday, because we're going to do live video Tuesday through Friday from the floor at CES. It's going to be insane. John and Callie from Geek Beat TV are going to be there. All of the stories that we publish will be down below. So just scroll down, and they're all there in this cool, sexy little thing. We're calling it Steph's Toy. Thanks, Steph. It's really nice. It's working out really well. So just park yourself there for the next week. Our coverage is really going to start on Sunday, even though we have announcements now. We will be on the ground starting tomorrow, I guess. Alex and Richard show up. Andrew and I will be out there Sunday. Andrew Vaca's coming with us. Jerry's minding the store from home, so God knows what's going to be on the website in a good way. So it's going to be a blast. Thank you all for coming with us. We're going to be so sick and tired at the end of it. It's going to be great. Can't wait. So no regular podcast next week. Definitely we'll be doing stuff from Vegas, so just listen out for it. And we'll probably be back on a regular show, I guess, in 2 weeks, right?
Think so.
Cool. As we are every week, we are brought to you by shopandroid.com. You can call them at 888-468-6158 or go to shopandroid.com. And that is it. We are out.
Later.
Hasta la vista.